Hello and welcome to Piano Shack with me, Woody. Now, I was wondering, does playing a virtual digital Rhodes like this one here on the NORD ELECTRO through a virtual amplifier and cabinet simulation make it sound better? Well, in today's video, we're going to find out. So here's the plan then. I'll play for you a few of the Rhodes sounds here on the NORD ELECTRO 6. Also, perhaps the Wurlitzer, and we might even throw the Hammond organ through a Marshall to see how awesome that sounds. For the emulation of the guitar amps and the cabinets, I'll be using Native Instruments Guitar Rig 6, which is a bit of an industry standard. So this, I think, will be a really interesting test. How awesome will it be to run my Electro through a whole bunch of virtual amps and cabinets? Let's get started. Oh, before we do start, I'll let you know that we'll occasionally be bypassing the plugin, disabling it so that you can hear the sound of the Electro dry. I have switched off all of the effects on the Electro, so we're purely hearing the sound of the amp simulations and any perhaps chorus or reverb that they might have built in. I do remember back in the day I used to play both a NORD ELECTRO and a real Fender Rhodes through a vintage guitar amp. I think it was one of these desirable blackface models, perhaps a Twin Reverb Deluxe or something. I forget the exact names of all of these, but a very expensive amplifier that cost actually more than the Electro or the Fender Rhodes. But I do have to tell you, there was something magic about it. Yeah, a really beautiful instrument, or really beautiful amplifier. When combined with the Electro, you could really hear the details in the sound. It brought up all of the details and added a really nice overdrive and saturation, and responded superbly well to the dynamics as well. So those are the kind of things that you need to be listening out for as I'm demonstrating these guitar model or the guitar amp models for you. How well is it bringing out the details of the sound? How is it responding to my touch? What you ideally want with a guitar amp is when you play softly, it just sounds nice and fat and warm and clean. But as you dig into the sound, that introduces the overdrive and distortion as you start really pushing those vacuum tubes in the guitar amp circuitry. Some of these vintage Fender amps had a spring reverb built in, so that's what you're hearing there. So let me show you briefly what I'm doing here in the plugin then. There are two modes. I've gone into the component mode. There's also a preset mode which combines all of the various components in exciting ways. But today I just want to keep it simple, so I'm just going to drag in the amplifiers from this selection here. Of course, they are cryptically named. There are websites that are quite helpful that translate these to the names of the real hardware, but I've figured out which are the Fender vintage instruments that you typically plug a Rhodes into. And we have, for example, this one here, the Tweed Man, which I'll just drag in here. And this gives you both the amplifier, which we have up here, and all of the settings, and also a cabinet simulator that is matched to this particular amp. And this control I absolutely love, and you'll see me adjusting it in the demonstrations. This is the distance of the microphones to the cabinet that's being mic'd up, and as you back it off you hear a lot more sound of the room, and it really does make you feel, it's incredible actually, like you're in the room together with a real Fender Rhodes. Yeah, it's actually quite startling. Really like it. The other ones I've been demonstrating, or will demonstrate, is this one down here, Twang Reverb. Not sure exactly what this is representing in the real world, but I'll put the translation up as I'm demonstrating this later. Here's another very simple Fender tube amp that we have there, the Tweed Delight. The bare minimum of controls, love it. We'll also test the Jazz amp, which is the Roland Jazz Chorus with the fabulous built-in chorus effect. There's lots of different Marshalls here, but we can play around with this one, the Plex. And you can see what a selection we have here. You can guess what a lot of these are. That's a Vox. We have an orange amplifier, Citrus, cleverly named. If we go over to the preset view and take a quick look, I won't be demonstrating these today. We can do that in a separate video because some of these are pretty incredible, but just to give you an idea, if we load up one of these, you get a whole rack full. There's two amplifiers there, a whole rack full of components, EQ and so on. Let's clear that one. Load in something else just for fun. Yeah, there's a whole variety of stomp boxes as well. Let's see if we can find a preset that uses some of those. Just pick a few at random. A cool Plex, another Marshall. There's some classic compressors there as well. So you can load in all sorts of stomp boxes. You can load in all sorts of amplifiers, cabinets, and studio effects as well. If I click here, you can see some of the distortion effects that are available to us, and you can just drop those in there as well. I suppose a lot of these are modeling classic guitar pedals. Yeah, that one, for example, I think we can all guess what that is. We can drop that in before the amplifier. There it is. Actually, I forgot to demonstrate this, but it would be quite fun just to run the Rhodes through a tube screamer, but that's something we'll have to do on another day. So I'm just noodling around here on some of these simulations, and I've kind of lost track a little bit of what I've played or what amp simulations I've tested. So sorry if there's a bit of overlap, playing the same stuff or demonstrating the same amplifiers. And I wish I'd prepared a bit more because I don't really know what to play and I'm just winging it today, but I hope that's okay. At least we can all hear together how this sounds. And it's the first time I've heard it for myself as well. I'll give you my thoughts towards the end of the video, but I'm pretty impressed. As some of you might know, the Electro itself has a built-in simulation, an amplifier simulation with a twin, a tweed setting as well, I can see, but it doesn't come close to what Guitar Rig can do. It actually falls quite flat, I think, in comparison. I forgot to do a demonstration of it, but in case you were wondering, yes, you're correct. The Electro does also have a amp sim and cabinet sim built in. I thought it would be fun to take the raw Hammond organ sound of the Electro, all effects switched off, no internal Leslie simulation, but let's push this sound through a massive Marshall stack, perhaps a little bit in the style of Brian Auger. Let's take a listen. One thing I could mention, if this has whet your appetite to try this kind of thing out yourself, then they do have a free version, and I don't know, you'll have to check yourself which guitar amp model is included, if it's a Fender or a Marshall or something else. So go and check that out. But yeah, perhaps that's worth a download if you want to experiment with this yourself. And whilst we're at it, let's take a listen to the Wurlitzer with a little bit of crunch. So let's wrap this up. What did you think? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. For me then, I was pretty blown away by this actually. I was expecting it to be decent, but not this good, especially when you start messing about with the mic position and getting some of the room sound into the mix. I thought it sounded really awesome. Yeah, it did sound just like you were in the room playing the real instrument. Really fantastic. I loved the crunch and the overdrive that you got, and I thought all of the amp models responded really well to dynamics as well. You could get a nice soft, warm, clean sound when you were playing softly at low velocities, but then when you started digging in, yeah, that's when the amps would break up and distort just like the real thing. I remember playing my electro through a real vintage Fender, and that's exactly how it worked there as well. As you strike the keys harder, you just introduce a bit of distortion that gives you beautiful, beautiful playing dynamics, a lovely touch, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, we only just scratched the surface really of what you can do here. I just dragged in a few of the default amp models without really tweaking them at all, but perhaps in the future we can try out some of the presets there which combine all of the effects pedals, the amps, the cabinets, and some studio effects as well. See how that sounds with some of the piano sounds here on the Electro. But that's something we'll save for another day. Don't forget to let me know in the comments how you thought it sounded. Until then, I'll see you next time. Cheerio.